Are we ready to get started on the DGFirst management? Now then, do we have, for the first item, the Sederunt and Apologies? Do we have any?
Pleased to confirm, Chairman, you have apologies from Councillor Gilroy today. Have no other apologies.
Councillor Diggle.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll move on to declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? Now, today, yes.
Is the meeting being recorded? The meeting being recorded?
Yes, indeed. I believe that will be the case, and I hope you'll enjoy your surroundings, because today you're also going to get a slideshow. I can't promise a pantomime. I hope we won't get a pantomime. But anyway, so moving on to, we'll go through the item 3, the minutes. Sorry, I have to take, there's an urgent paper going to be coming through towards the end of this meeting, and we will circulate it at the moment so that you get a chance to read it, if that's okay with members.
Can you give us an idea what's pertaining to, Chair?
With regard to the content, it's an actual, it's to do with agreement to enter into a license for storage of storage accommodation. Is that okay? I also understand that the directors to give us a presentation on health and safety arrangements within DGFirst. Now, we'll move on to item 3 while that paper's been circulated, and we'll take the minutes of October, 30th of October. Yes?
Thanks, Chair. I'm just looking at the last item on which was the obviously discussion that we had on whether we should be in committee room 2 or not. And I'm not sure whether that was the outcome of the discussion, because I think everybody sort of left halfway through. If you remember the discussion, there was no sort of there was some of the things in there said. Absolutely, I totally agree with that. But I'm not sure whether that was the exact outcome of the discussion that we actually had. I think next week at full council, that'll sort the issue, in that hopefully all committee meetings will be held in the chamber, and if members want to go to the committee rooms, they will actually hold it in the chamber first, and that decision will be made by members. I'm hoping that's the way it goes anyway. But I'm not sure whether that was the actual output of any noting or things like that, because we all sort of dispersed at the end without something being discussed.
Can I ask then, Councillor Driver, are you happy to accept it on that basis?
I'd be happy to accept it, to say that we would, certainly the Labour group here, there was nothing noted or anything like that. There was a discussion, but there was nothing noted.
Confirm, Chairman, my understanding is that there was no clear agreement, but what there was a discussion, and that discussion has been noted. And if members are happy, given the members' comments in relation to next week's full council, can we proceed on that basis? Thank you.
Councillor Martin,
It's just a pity the meeting hadn't been recorded, then we'd have had a true record.
Okay, thank you for that. So moving on, we have approval for the meeting of the 30th of October? We are in agreement? Thank you. Moving on to item 4, the revenue budgeting budget monitoring report. Could we have this will be for yourself, Bill? Have you any charge of this?
If there are any questions in the report, then I'm happy to take them.
Councillor Driver,
Thanks, Chair. I'm looking at the table in 3.16 of where there are some underspends and overspends, and in particular the home care and supporting people. I mean, it was mentioned at policy and social services this morning about their overspend, and as you're aware, home care and supporting people is given by social work to deliver by DGFirst. And I think there's issues in that. I'm not sure what the outcome of that particular meeting was this morning because I wasn't there. But Derek, have you got any understanding of what that was? Were you there? Or?
Unfortunately, I wasn't there, Chairman. My understanding was that there were some discussions, but these would now be a matter for further discussions through the appropriate channels, but certainly would be a matter that will be brought forward in due course as required.
Just that, Chair, under the DGFirst, they would be looking at this as a saving as such, or as an underspend, but in actual fact it wasn't spent by the commissioning body, if you know what I mean.
We'll take in Councillor Peacock.
Thank you, Chair. Part of 2 points, actually. One of them's following on the same sort of line from Councillor Driver. But first of all, just in 3.6, where you state that you've taken out the proposed saving at the time of the 242 from the waste management review, which didn't get completed. I would like just a bit of understanding on why that was just taken out of the budget completely, just for my benefit. But moving on to item 5, the achievement of savings. And down on the last sort of paragraph, it says that the underspend from other areas in the DGFirst, which again will mainly come from the home care services. The underspend in this area from the home care side of it, it says it could be reduced as demand is higher in the winter months, which I appreciate. But taking this into account, if this occurs, then the budget will be overspent and it will not break even. And I'd just like to know how the Director intends to address that.
Thank you. Director.
I've got it to work. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that. It's a very sensible question. If I can answer the first bit about why was the money removed, well, that's how savings are taken out of the budget. So we made a forecast of a saving of £242,000. So the budget level was reduced by £242,000. We haven't achieved that for reasons which we explained at our last meeting. So we're in an overspend on that. There's a number of things that have happened in the home care and supporting people budget, and if members wish more detailed explanation, then Kate MacLeod will give you that. But in effect, as we move through the year and we get a closer handle on what the eventual outturn is, we will have to reduce spending on other areas to match that overspend. Because I, like every other director, is tasked with coming in on budget, on or under budget.
Is that okay? Satisfied? Right. Move on to. Sorry, we come back. All right.
Yeah, Chair, thank you. It's just okay. I appreciate that, and I hope you can find the other savings, because I do believe there will be more demand for the home care services over the winter. But following on to the appendix here, and again it comes in with the downturn in the construction consent payments that you would normally receive, and again this is understandable in the present climate. And I would expect that this will continue into 2013-14, as I'm sure most of us will. And that came to your underspend at the moment, or your income that hasn't come in, of £48,600 here. I'm just wondering again, are you planning ahead with this in mind? Because looking into the next budget in the next year, I would imagine this trend would continue.
I think the short and simple answer is yes. We annually review the budgets, and if we believe that the income budget won't be met, then we have to make a corresponding reduction in the expenditure budget to match that.
Councillor Martin, you want to come in?
Thanks, Chair. Just on 316, parts and ground maintenance, £126,000 overspend. £126,000 overspend, and it only merits 4 lines of the report 313. As I say, expected savings of £140,000, a reduction in area committee funding, staff equipment. Could we get a bigger breakdown, better breakdown of a report, what this actually means?
Caroline, do you have that additional data?
Overspend, and it only merits 4 lines in the report. As I say, I think we could do a bit more information than that.
We'll certainly ensure that's in the next monitoring report for you.
Councillor Thompson, you want to come in?
Just following on 3.16, and also from the minutes of 844. Again, on waste collection, there's £161,000 overspend on that. And has it gone off? What I'm interested in knowing is how much of that overspend would be attributable to the retention of the additional refuse vehicle.
Thank you, Councillor. A sizable proportion of that £161,000 will be the additional costs of retaining the additional vehicles that had been anticipated to be removed as part of the route review process. So we have additional vehicles, we have costs associated with the operational difficulty that we had earlier in the year with regards to collection in Nithsdale. We have got, as part of the route review, additional costs that have been encountered because of the difficulties in clearing the route. So within that 161, there is a make-up of vehicles, overtime and additional resources for covering absence, sickness, etc. from labour.
Yes, Councillor Thompson.
Just to follow up from that then, can I ask the question, is it the intention to retain this additional vehicle?
I think, as we said at the last committee, we had the original proposal or aim was to remove 2 crews and 2 vehicles from the route review. The route review has clearly brought around several challenges, and it's clearly anticipated at this time that at least 1 vehicle has gone, will be going, and we are still hoping through final tweaks and manipulation that eventually that additional one could be done. But as we stated at the last committee, we have had to reintroduce 1 to ensure that the bin collection across Dumfries and Galloway was weekly and on that basis.
Bringing in Councillor Hislop.
Chair, it's with relation to 3.10, the school meals service. Have you any idea what the sort of inflation levels may be? I was at a meeting yesterday, and there seems to be vegetables, especially like potatoes and peas were mentioned, whereby we're needing to import these now from Germany, Poland, places like that, and it's putting a high level of cost increase on. Have you any idea what those might be in the near future?
Councillor, I can't give you the specific increase, but I know Alan's monitoring it on a weekly basis with Caroline, and the picture we're getting at the moment, it is going to be basically on root products, potatoes, etc., that are, are still in the ground and that sort of thing. So he's monitoring that closely. but we are having greater demand on the budget. Hence, as you know, previously last year we didn't use it, but we still have the 90,000 corporately, should we need to pull it down. But I can provide members with an update, if you like, via email, that can give you a true picture of the inflated costs that we're now facing going forward.
I think that's actually a very fair point that you raised, Councillor. So food costs are very much on the increase. I mean, even in the press, we've seen now bread's going up 10 pence a loaf, such like. And that's the second time in 1 year. Anyway, I believe Councillor Ferguson, you would like to come in.
I'm not sure if it's the right place to bring it in or not, but I recognise that you'd spent quite some amount of money on equipment, which was one of the reasons it was improved the repairs, but has it also improved the efficiency in terms of bringing down the staff costs, for example? I'm talking about the hot boxes and stuff like that, Bill, that we had at the last presentation.
Thank you. It really wasn't a question of efficiency, staff efficiency as such. It was about doing a better job and therefore reducing the number of actual repairs that we had to do. We've seen some early signs of improvement in the way that we do things, and dare I say it, we have recently received a number of compliments, which is unusual for pothole repairs, but it's nice to hear. So we have seen improvements in both the way that we do things, the number of repairs, and also we've seen over the course of time quite high levels of achievement of our response targets.
Okay, as there's no further questions on this particular item, we'll go to recommendations. Members are asked to note that based on the first 7 months' expenditure, the revenue budget is projected to break even in 2012-13. Yes.
I agree with that, Chair, but just to add to that, we have agreed that we'll receive a further more in-depth report with regard 3.13 at the next monitoring meeting.
That's fine. We will do that as a matter of course.
Yeah, just confirming the Chairman, indication is you've endorsed the recommendation with the addition that for the next meeting, additional information will be available in relation to park and ground maintenance.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to item 5. This is a trading operations monitoring report for 2012-13, and that's for the period ended the 31st of October. As with the last report, this covers the period up to the end of October, and therefore, we will take any questions unless the Director wishes to add anything. Councillor Hislop.
Just could we have reassurances that there's no concerns with regard to the contract changes that Amy haven't got the South West Scotland contract for the roads, and there'll be no effect on our trading as there may be a reduction in work?
Chair, if I may, I think it's fairly usual at the end of these contracts for there to be less work given, actually done by the trunk road operating company. But that's part of the prediction in the report, and we have started talks with the new trunk road operating company. They're at a quite early stage, but we hope that we'll get the same level of work out of them.
Councillor Driver.
Just on the same point, and I mean, obviously discussions with the new company will go ahead, and hopefully they'll be more fruitful than what they were with Amy. And is there an opportunity to have more income from that particular contract?
I wasn't actually in the discussion, so I think probably the best thing is if I let Ronnie discuss some of the issues that were spoken about.
Chair, we were well aware that there was a fair number of rumours floating around with regards to the trunk roads. One of the difficulties, obviously, was that there was a pending action between Amy to try and resolve issues with their employer, Transport Scotland. That has now been cleared up, and Scotland Transerve have been for want of a term, given the green light to progress to mobilisation stage for the new contract. We are aware that one of their first major challenges is the TUPE issues between Amy. So we'd had some early discussions with them via telephone, and they requested a period of relative grace to allow these to move forward. I met with representatives from Transerve this week. I think it's fair to say that the discussion was very positive, looking at a greater level of partnership working in the southwest. They realise the importance of Dumfries and Galloway to deliver their promises across the trunk road network. So I think the simple answer is we're at an early stage in actually having the clearer detail on the full basket of activities that they wish us to do, but I certainly I'm feeling very positive that they are looking for Dumfries and Galloway to be more a partner than just a subcontractor.
Thank you, members. As there's no further questions on this item, and it's also good to note that there is a small profit of some £5,000. We will move to the recommendations, and once again, members are asked to note that based on the first 7 months' expenditure, the trading operations is currently projected to return a surplus of £5,000. Are we in agreement? Thank you very much. Moving on to item 6, this is where we're discussing the Corporate Change Fund, Care and Support Services. Director, is there anything you wish to add?
I'll give a little bit of background, if I may, Chair. Members may be aware that on 4th of December, Policy and Resources Committee considered a report on the Corporate Change Fund and bids. That committee decided that service committees should consider departmental bids and make recommendations on them. So we brought forward a paper for you. We had one bid, the one that's before you, which asked effectively for funding for resources to fundamentally change the way in which care and support services undertakes its administration and management. In brief, the bid is to employ temporary staff to continue to carry out the manual record keeping and data entry, so the experienced staff who currently do that can be released to implement change in the service. Mrs. MacLeod and I will be happy to take any questions if members have them.
Councillor Driver.
Yeah, and I think it's right. I mean, we need to look at what process we actually go through when we go for a corporate change fund bid. And I think it's right to go through service committees first before we actually go to policy and resources. But just looking at that paper at policy and resources, there was a fund application for 154,000 rather than the 120,000 that's come forward at the moment. So, I mean, the question is why they change on there. There's a couple other questions. I mean, I think this is a spend to save request, but I need to know how much it'll save, or be given an idea how much it'll actually save. And will it mean that there's actually less home carers or less time on a particular job, which will end up being the savings that you actually get from that particular thing?
Thank you, Chair. It isn't actually intended as a spend to save measure, because out of this alone there will be no cashable savings. There will be an increase in productivity and an increase in efficiency, and as the developments are extended to the reablement service, we should see some cashable savings at that point. But we're at a very early stage with the integration of the reablement service, and it's not possible to predict savings at the moment. To go back to that, there are 3 criteria for acceptance of a bid at the Corporate Change Fund. One is, as you suggested, the spend to save. This actually falls under the second one, which is to fundamentally transform the service, and that's what we're doing. Right. That was our original and quite early estimate. Mrs. MacLeod and her staff have refined that estimate, and we now believe 120,000 should be sufficient.
Quite happy with that, Councillor. Right. Moving on to Councillor Peacock.
Thank you, Chair. I have some concerns over this, Chair. One being that the resource that we're looking to ask policy and resources here for is just staff costs. None of that money will actually be invested in the top technology for the smartphones, and which would help the ongoing development of the programme running out. And therefore, because from reading through it, the idea is that the smartphones, the home care and staff themselves can be contacted quite easily, and as soon as they come out of a job, it's contacted in and it's logged, and I appreciate that you need the staff there to determine where a home care is just finished and if he's needed or she's whoever they're needed in the next place. I'm understanding that side of it, but the funding is solely for staff costs here. So I have slight sort of concerns that, is the technology completely in place for that before we go to the change fund asking for staff costs only? Or should some of that, or is some of that needed to cost the technology or bring the technology up to what you need? And the other point that I have is that we're asking 120,000 here from policy and resources. And I can see there could be an issue where they might turn around and say, well, you have underspent by 269,000 in the home care services. And they might come back to us and ask us to use that money, which again will have a big effect on the budget as you've set it out. So I have issues on that, and I just maybe like some reassurances or some confidence that this will go through.
In effect, to answer the first part of your comment, and I certainly couldn't answer the second one because I can't predict what Policy and Resources Committee will do. The reason we're asking for staff costs only is because we will be able to replace one set of communications costs that we have at the moment with the cost of the smartphones. So there was an original pilot that proved very successful, which is why we've decided to do this. The process will be cost neutral, but if we tried to do it ourselves, it would take far longer. So this is to accelerate the process, to get it done, so that we can also move it into the reablements service within a reasonable timescale. Kate, I don't know whether you want to add anything to that.
Perhaps it might be easier if I just take a couple of minutes and tell you what we will get from this system as members support it. At the moment, we have a real-time monitoring system, as members are aware, where carers log in and log out of services home. That is a good example of managing lone working. We can also send out messages, etc., to them, and it also generates our invoicing system and the payments that we get from social work service. This system's called CM2000, and what we have been doing over the past 2 years is working with CM2000 to increase the technology and remove the paper trail, if you like, that home care generates at the moment. Members can imagine 253 home carers all needing a rota. That is a lot of paper, and it just needs one person to go off sick and all these rotas need to be generated. Okay? What this system will give me, and I say me in the loosest terms, one screen that will show me the capacity and availability of every carer across the region, rather than having to delve into rotas and existing systems. So basically, at a touch of a button, we will be able to respond quicker to social work services on taking on referrals and packages, because it won't be a phone call into what I'm now calling mission control to say, can you take on this package? And we'll go, hang on a minute, I need to phone X, Y, and Z and see who's available. That information will be there, and we will be able to respond quicker. What we will also be able to do, and as I say, apart from removal of the manual writing, the postage costs, etc., and the hand delivering through letter boxes, is information direct to the carers on the smartphone. So if Kate McLeod was into hospital one night, that information can be automatically sent to that carer. We then know that she has capacity maybe to go and support the next day. What it will also do is calculate the travel and the mileage that the carers claim at the moment. That will be done for them, like doing it similar to the A route members. So it takes away the paper chase within that. From that, what we're hoping to do as well is become more efficient when it comes to the travel and the journey plan of the carers. So we will be able to locate the carers nearer to the service users, rather than say, Kate has got capacity, she needs to go here. We'll be saying, no, we have carers within that vicinity. So it's part of that as well. It's trying to control the travel and the mileage cost. It will then automatically generate the payroll for us, travel mileage claims, etc. So hopefully we will be going paperless, which is a big saving. It will then release the management and supervisory staff to do the quality and performance and put the service user first, rather than the paper trail of doing rotas and rota changes. So they will be out under care inspectorate now. We need to do 6 monthly reviews of every service user we have. So it's building in their management capacity. Rather than chasing paper and rotas, councillors, they will actually be doing the quality and the performance stuff. We're also, and as the the director said, looking at integrating that. As from October, as you know, I now have responsibility for the NHS partnership working with STARS, which we're kind of unpicking at the moment. We're also currently in discussion with Tech Solutions and the communication unit at looking for a Dumfries and Galloway app that we can put onto these smartphones, so as we can send information to the carers out there who don't work from a base, as you know, they work from home, so as we can get communication going better for corporate information as well as that. Further down the line, and it's the next to do, if you like, on improving, is to get the measurable outcomes for the service users recorded and monitored and used as a management tool. So the carers will eventually be able to send us outcomes or issues with service users through smartphone technology, so they're dealt with there and then. So hopefully the efficiencies that Bill talked about, it's like, and I know it's the old kind of cliche, having the right person in the right place at the right time, but there should be efficiencies from the back office as well as the travel and mileage and that sort of stuff. And we hope then to focus the management and supervision of the people out there on the quality and the performance and putting the service users first. We are a good service and we just want to be that better service by using this technology.
Thank you, Kate. That was a very comprehensive explanation and covered that. We'll move on to Councillor Hislop. You were going to come in.
Might sound a daft laddie question, but does this system fit in with all our current IT systems? Because in the past I've had problems. And at 3.4, I don't like the first point in there, which says it will allow us to put service users at the heart of our service. I would have thought that should have been the first thing that happens anyway. And the other ones, surely if it's more efficient and more productive, there should be some cashable savings in there, whether it's from this part of the contract or somewhere else in the council, that we can make a more effective and productive service.
On the cashable and productive savings, I say at the moment, Leader, I don't see that. I see that in the efficiencies that will come out that will allow us, within what we already have, to do more. As you know, the demographics are changing. We're working in partnership with social work over this. You know, they're estimating or projecting a 10% increase in the demand of need for older people's services by 2016. From this, I'm not saying it's cashable savings. What I'm saying is efficiencies to allow us to do more with what we have.
Are you satisfied with that, Councillor Hislop?
Just confirmation that the IT does work with the current system.
Apologies. Yes, technical solutions have been involved in this. Yep.
Right, we'll move on to Councillor Ferguson, please.
Thanks. I think Kate will have to answer this one as well, probably. I can understand the process. I'm sold on why it needs to happen. But I am worried about the integrated approach, whether if we're building something for the future here, that it meets the needs for talking to the NHS a new integrated system, whatever happens. And then I'll be happy with an assurance that that's discussions taking place. But my main question, though, is that if this is basically an ongoing improvement to the CASS system, quite rightly, an improvement to what you've got currently, why is it taking 18 months to actually implement it if the software is already done? That's no clear in the paper as to why it's going to be, you need these 3 members of staff for 18 months to let people go and do this. Maybe a bit more meat in the bones for that would help.
I think there's two aspects to that. First of all, we already have a project within our business plan which is talking about the integration of ICT, integration and development of ICT. So part of the project is there. And I think, actually going back to the leader's point, this is actually a cost avoidance measure that we're putting in place. We're asking for the funding to allow it to be done rapidly so that we can make rapid change. If we have to do it ourselves using the existing resources, it will take forever and a day. So this investment is in change to get us to a point within 18 months. Kate, I don't know whether you want to add.
Just to reassure Councillor Ferguson that NHS are involved in the technology and we're looking at their systems at the moment and what we actually need for the service going. So I give you that reassurance. I haven't missed that loop out. I think what has to be recognised here is that we're introducing technology into a workforce that's used to getting a piece of paper. So we need to invest the time and the resource in training these people to use their smartphones properly, to accept the message that they're receiving and all that. Sorry, apologies. And all, you know, that goes behind that. It's not just a matter of handing the smartphone over and saying they need to understand, you know, that this is, you know, taken forward. And I must admit, the trial in Langham, although some of the home carers were, okay, I can hardly use my mobile phone and you're asking me to use a smartphone, it has gone extremely well, but we need the time. I will happily, would love to come back in 12 months' time and say this is in place. And I say, I think what we've said is it's a maximum of 18 months within the bid, because we need the resource to actually to move it forward quickly.
Thank you. We now have Councillor Driver and
Susie, can I come back
and
now?
after that, we'll to recommend the... Yes, Councillor Ferguson.
I'd be happy with that if...
by all means.
If we were to agree that if it does come in under 18 months and it's complete, then it is, and the money is then reused or put back to the centre. I don't know if that can actually happen, or if it's once it's transferred, it's bills forever sort of thing. If you get my drift, and I'd be happy with that response if that was the case.
No, the way
up to 18 months.
The way that it works is that it still remains part of the corporate general reserve, and we draw down on it as we require. And if we don't require the money, then we don't draw it down.
That's okay, right. We'll move on to Councillor Driver and then Councillor Peacock.
Chair, I'm happy to support it at the end of the day, but I think what we need to do is that to show that we've actually scrutinised this report is to add those things into the report that will go to policy and resources. That it doesn't just include, you know, the 3 temporary administration systems over 18 months. It's about the training, the IT equipment, all of that sort of thing. And the app. There's only one other question that I want to make sure of, is that if we have an app for D&G, is it going to make sure it's data protected, make sure nobody else gets a hold of these things?
The simple answer is yes. Don't ask me, because I left IT behind several years ago how. But, sorry, Councillor Driver, the first part of your question was, yes, this is slightly tongue-in-cheek, but the bid that was presented to Policy and Resources was a heavily edited version of the one that was seen at Corporate Management Team. So we will put back in the things that were taken out.
And the reason for that, Bill, is that we'll know that Policy and Resources will challenge what DGFirst Management Committee actually asked of the actual report. So if it's in there, then that's fine.
Very good. Yep, no, that will be in. And now moving on to Councillor Peacock, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think Kate actually mentioned it when she was speaking last year, but it was just to confirm that the actual smartphones, the equipment themselves, will be provided by DGFirst, so that everybody gets the same piece of equipment.
But not me.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll now move to recommendations, but before so I'll bring in our governance just to give us some clarity on what's been said.
Thank you very much, Chairman. The committee has certainly fulfilled one of its key remits, which is business scrutiny, and therefore in considering whether or not to bring a bid forward to the Policy and Resources Committee, you've given the bid before you today full consideration. I think members have had explanations behind some of the detail, therefore understand the decision of the committee is to recommend the bid goes forward to P&R Committee to the Corporate Change Fund for £120,000 in relation to the smartphone technology, noting that the additional points made by members will be incorporated into the finalised bid submitted to the P&R Committee.
I take it we're in agreement. Thank you very much. Okay, we will now move on to item 7, which is the Director's 6-monthly assessment of performance. I'll hand you over to the Director.
Thank you, Chair. Members have received a colour version separately of Appendices 1 and 2. Overall, performance is good, with only 3 key performance indicators and 1 key project being below target. I'd like to highlight some of the issues, but I'll attempt to answer any questions you have at the moment. Bits that I would like to highlight are to do with absence management, so if I can take questions first, and then we'll run you through a very quick presentation with some additional information.
Members, we're in session. Councillor Driver.
It may actually come through the presentation because I'm actually going on to the percentage of staff who've completed an annual performance development review. I actually think that may actually help the situation with sickness absence and things like that. So I don't know if that's going to be involved in that, though.
No, it wasn't Councillor Driver, but we've actually made significant progress. We're below target. It was an ambitious target to deal with 1,900 people receiving performance and development reviews. But we've actually made significantly better progress than we had feared, so it's going well. And yes, you're quite right. Talking to people is one of the elements of absence management.
I might come back then after I see the presentation.
Oh, yes, Councillor Hislop, you'd like to come in?
It was with regard to percentage of defects repaired within set timescales, vehicle maintenance. There's no value there. Is it just a case of it's a yearly figure?
No, Leader, it's actually the fact that it's a direct result of the insourcing of the Fraken maintenance operation, which has caused the available management capacity to be focused on TUPE issues and manning issues rather than on providing me with a performance indicator.
Councillor Wiper, you were indicating you wish to come in.
Thank you, Chair. It's just a performance indicator, number of defects repaired within set timescales, 70%. What is the figure for those that don't meet that target? I mean, how wildly out are they, or you know, what are they over the target for repair, the timescale?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but if you're meaning how long does it take us to repair a pothole, rather than the 30% that we weren't doing at that point in time, I can't actually give you a figure, but I can do the research and find out for you. I think the performance has actually improved since this report. October itself, we hit higher than is recorded in here. This is only the first 6 months up to the beginning of October. So October, we hit an 84% completion within timescale. It's a little lower for November, but it's still quite high at 78%. But I will find out the numbers for you and get an average time for repair.
Yes, Councillor Yen.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to ask about road structure maintenance and management inspection. I noticed that you have put targets really low, 40%, but there's an annual target for 83%, and that the actual value is 41.28%. I don't really understand the figures.
My apologies. It is slightly confusing. We have a monthly target of the number of inspections that need to be carried out, and at the risk of making members' eyes glaze over, there are two types of structural inspection. There is a general inspection, which happens every 2 years, and a principal inspection, which happens every 6 years. So we have 1,222 bridges-ish, and they're inspected every 2 years, twice at general and once at principal. This performance indicator is a monthly one. It's based on how many we do in a month, and there's a figure for that. The 6 monthly, we aim to do 42%, and we've done 41%. We're slightly underperformance on that. I'd be happy to talk you through it in detail.
Councillor Ferguson, you want to come in?
Yeah, just a couple of things. First one maybe means an explanation, actually. On page 43, the percentage of planned actions completed in time winter service is not measured in half years. Given we're in December, when do we measure that? And it would be a question, maybe a daft boy question, and easily answered. Just 2 things. The other thing I'm a bit worried about here is the on page 44, the average number of days lost per employee through sickness absence, which has gone up and quite a bit over target. Is there any specific reason for that, Bill, or is it?
I'll cover the second part in the presentation, if that's okay. Now, the first part, I'm sorry, I've gone blank. Could you repeat it for me?
I was just asking when.
All right, the winter. Yes, it's an annual indicator, though we do monitor it on a monthly basis. It comes directly out of the Strategic Commission, and it's an annual figure of the percentage of times.
I'm sure my experience here. When do you actually report that? Because I would have thought December might have been a good time to do it.
We report it with our outturn performance, which will be May or June next year. If it's any consolation, Councillor Ferguson, the figure is 100% at the moment.
Thanks very much, Sir.
As there's no further questions, move on to the next stage directly. You want?
Yes, if I may, Chair, and if we can get the technology to support. I wanted to explore a bit more of the absence figures, because that's 2/3 of the red indicators. So
yes, sorry, I'm obviously missing. Right, Councillor Whiteburn.
It's just the actual first key indicator in the number of days lost. Is this something the same as what Councillor Yen asked a minute ago there? You've got value 6.93, target 4.5. If you look along, the annual target is 9. That's a bit, is it the same answer?
slightly different, but yes, it's the same effect.
Yeah.
It's the difference between the annual target and the half-yearly target. And we actually monitor it on a monthly basis. And if we go to the second slide, please. This chart shows last year and this year to date's performance. One of the councillors commented that the current short-term trend was up. You'll see that that is the case. The October performance has gone up slightly from the previous year. Up until that point, this year we have been doing better than last year, which is always good news. You'll also see there's a sort of rhythm to the absences. We could have the next slide, please. One of the key elements of the maximising attendance policy is the return to work interview. Now, we achieved quite a good result in September and dropped off in October. We actually believe that to be a data entry problem and that return to work interviews were actually done, but the paperwork wasn't. So we're looking into that. We're achieving one of the highest rates of return to work interviews, and it is a key element in maximising attendance. That work is going on at all the levels that we have. Could I have the next slide, please? Okay. Maximising attendance has 3 stages. This gives a snapshot of how many maximising attendance stages we have. We've got a large number of people going through stage 1. We've got significantly more people at stage 2 and stage 3 than any other department, which is the result of management input into doing that. If we have the next slide, please. That was it. Thank you. What I was attempting to show in that very brief presentation is that we are putting an awful lot of management effort into this. We have some surprisingly high figures in some classes of illnesses. Absences are categorized as to cause, so it came as quite a shock when the management team looked at absences one particular month. We had a 25% absence due to surgical reasons. We looked into it a bit more, and that was mainly the home care service. And the home care service is predominantly female, and the average age is well over 50. It ties back. It'll not be a surprise to you to know that the next highest cause is muscular and skeletal disorders. Home carers lift people, road workers lift heavy weights. There's an awful lot of that. We also believe that one of the reasons for our high absence level, and it's not the total answer, but we have some mandatory absences which are not captured separately. So, for example, those working in kitchens aren't allowed to go back into a kitchen if they've had a stomach ailment unless a time period goes past. Home carers aren't allowed to visit service users if they've got a cold. So we reckon that knocks our overall absence rate down by about 1%. Still higher than the council's target, but there are some reasons for some of it. And if you wish to ask any detailed questions about particular aspects of the services, then my heads of service and I will attempt to answer them.
Councillor Driver.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to come back in about the annual appraisal. I think it is an opportunity to actually set Is that not same as an appraisal, that making sure that people have the right training in place, making sure that they're there all the time, making sure that, you know, if they've got any issues, that can be raised at that particular time. And it's a development, okay, a development review, that's fine. Same thing, appraisal in my world, but there you go. My understanding that if you have a development review, of course, you're also looking at training that's required and that type of thing as well. Just listening to what you're saying, Bill, about the mandatory absences, and I agree with you that will have to be taken into consideration when you come to home carers and staff who work in kitchens and things like that. I think perhaps that needs to be advised more to certain members. But I think the development review part is maybe somewhere we can look at and try and increase. And I heard you saying that was it October that some of the paperwork hadn't been received or things like that. And what we're doing to try and improve that.
That's quite simple. I jump up and down and rant at my heads of service, and they go and jump up and down at their service managers and rant, and it goes down the line. That's one of the reasons why we've seen a peak in the number of return to work. We are aware that there's a data issue somewhere in the reporting, because both my heads of service at their recent one-to-ones said, but we've done more return to work interviews than that. But the system isn't picking them up for some reason.
Councillor Thompson.
Just looking again at the figures, you know, for people at stages 1 to 3, it seems, as you've said yourself, quite a high number. Could you actually tell me what stage 1, 2 and 3 are?
These are various levels of intervention through the council's maximising attendance policy when you hit key trigger points in relation to absence. So if a person has a pattern or has had within a set period of time a number of absences and they hit a trigger point, they then go to stage 1. If that then continues through the procedure and they then hit another intervention trigger point, you then go to stage 3, and likewise when you head towards a 3. This is all down to trying to actively work with the staff to find out what the problems are, put things in place to try and get them back to their work, but obviously it has to have the opposite effect as well, that it gives us tools to maximise the ability to progress staff through those stages, and ultimately, sadly, if it comes down to capability hearings, and then sadly let these members of staff go.
Thank you. Do you wish to come back in?
So how many absences for stage 1, stage 2 and stage 3?
I don't have the document here. I would hate to quote the exact numbers, but you know, the maximising attendance policy, I think it's fair we could circulate it to members as well, so you have it and you've got that information, because it's council policy, so that can be arranged to be given to you.
Is it just the case, though, that if you hit this magic number of absences, that it's automatically at stage 1, 2, 3, or is there an interpretation on that?
There has to be an interpretation, and we work closely with our colleagues in HR, and each case is looked at on its own merits. So no, it's not just a very prescriptive process. You've hit that date. There can be other factors. There can be issues that perhaps as managers we're not aware of, but through the discussion with the employee, we get that information and we can clearly see there are justified reasons. So you can step away from taking to the next level, but it's down to the council having a set process that if there is no specific reason, then it has a process to follow through to an end conclusion.
Thank you, Ron. We have now Councillor Wiper and Councillor Hislop, and then Councillor Ferguson, and then I'm going to recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. I think this question might have been asked and answered months ago, but I honestly can't remember what the answer was. The kitchen worker with the stomach bug or the carer with the cold that can't fulfil their role, they are gainfully employed somewhere else in the organisation?
The answer to that is it depends. If we have the opportunity to redeploy them, yes, but it's very much dependent on circumstances, so it depends.
Councillor Hislop. Oh, sorry.
What you'll also find, Councillor Wiper, that a vast majority of the ladies that work within facilities management maybe have 1 or 2 jobs. So they might not go to the kitchen, but they'll go to their cleaning job or their crossing patrol job, etc. So, you know, it is a managed process.
Maybe didn't actually phrase that question very well. What I meant was the one with the stomach bug who is now better but still can't go back to work in the kitchen, you know, because they've got a time delay. That was what I meant. You know, they're fit to work, but they're not allowed to go back to their actual task.
Sorry, the legislation is 48 hours, so they will be paid. They don't lose anything for, you know, being off.
Councillor Wiper, could you use your mic, please, if you're going to continue?
Sorry, yeah. I just meant that during that 48 hours they're fit for work, but they're not allowed to work. Are they then employed doing something else?
No, they're at home.
unless they've got a secondary role which they can be used.
Councillor Driver, behave yourself. No, you're fine. No, you're okay. You're okay. Right, we'll move on to Councillor Hislop, please.
It was the graph you put up on, was it return to work interviews? I maybe didn't hear it when you were explaining because I was trying to work out, was that 0.7% were carried out? Because the thing said percentage and it was at 0.7.
No, it's 70%. I would be jumping up and down at a fast rate.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. Given the ethos of the maximising attendance policy was agreed as it was a welfare tool, not a stick to hit people back to work who might not be fit to be there, can we get assurance that all the managers or supervisors who undertake the back to work interviews have had the appropriate training to carry it out and are aware that it is a welfare tool, not it's a carrot rather than a stick?
Certainly that's the ethos that we teach them. It is for the benefit of both the council and the employees. So, yes.
Okay, councillors, we will now move on to the recommendations. And 2.1, we have the review, the overall summary of performance for DGFirst set out in Appendix 1. Are we in agreement with that? Thank you. And 2.2, scrutinise the exception report in Appendix 2 and consider whether the action proposed are adequate to improve performance and future monitoring of areas which have not met the target, and recognise the areas of good practice, high performance, where the target has been exceeded. And in 2.3, agree the proposed amendments to the performance information for the DGFirst 2012-15 business plan as detailed in Appendix 3. And I have an indication from yourself, Councillor Driver.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I don't think I have any problem with those recommendations, but I'm just looking at the Appendix 2 part where there are some figures well above the target. For instance, in percentage of town centre roads, where was it? We had some targets here that were quite high. Yeah, the percentage satisfied in service user schools facility management is 98.48%. The target was 75%, and the annual target was 75%. Should we not be better putting a higher target on the value to make sure that, you know, we have a continuous improvement system?
Director, will you?
That will form part of our business plan review, which will come in March, April time, that we will look at all the targets and, if appropriate, suggest new ones.
Okay, thank you.
Are we happy to agree all of the recommendations? Yes. Thank you very much for that. Item 8, then we're moving on to community safety integration update. Could we have an update on that, Director, please?
Thank you, Chair. Some members will be aware that our council decided to integrate community safety into a single service. It was later decided that this unit should be part of DGFirst. Policy and Resources last week considered a strategic commission for community safety. Now, one caveat on the report is that the unit is not deemed to be fully operational until the 1st of April next year. That doesn't mean to say that community safety services are not being delivered. They are, by the new unit. Myself and the Service Manager Community Safety will be happy to take any questions on the report.
Councillor Dryburgh.
Thanks, Chair. I think this came from, I think we did a one-day seminar about 3 years ago about looking at community safety and looking at who could be involved in that. I remember coming to the actual the day's event and breaking up into wee groups and having post-its and all this sort of all the lovely stuff that we do nowadays in seminars. Although it wasn't a decision-making body at all. I'm just looking at the community safety officers versus the community safety enforcement officers, and I would imagine the community safety enforcement officers are those that can give tickets and bill people for doing certain things, and the community safety officers are those that may have been community wardens in the past and collecting information which the intelligence they can pass on to police or whoever they need to actually pass that information on to. And looking at the sort of setup of the Community Safety Service organisation, I think it's right to have the sort of east and west side of things. But what I want to know is, prior to this move, looking at community wardens, there was 3 particular areas in which community wardens were in Dumfries and Galloway, which was Stranraer, North West Dumfries and Annan. And how many officers were there in that particular role? There was officers already in noise enforcement, in environmental enforcement, in smoking enforcement, whatever it was. How many officers were there compared to what there is now in this new setup?
If I can answer the first bit, the difference between enforcement officers and safety officers, you got it almost right, but not quite. Which isn't bad, yeah, good enough for government work. The responsibilities of the 2 types of officers are set out on page 59, and effectively all of the officers are able to issue fixed penalty notices, but one group of officers are the ones that would take cases to court in very basic terms. So the enforcement officers are the ones that go to court. All officers are capable of issuing FPN, or will be. As to the numbers, I'm afraid I came to this fairly late, so I'm going to have to ask Jim Hendry to answer that bit.
Yeah, when these services were in their own separate guises, there was a total of 38 officers, or 38 people. Some of them were, quite a number were part-time, and as part of the as the years went on, these numbers went down, some weren't replaced. As far as like the noise enforcement, there was no one left in noise enforcement when I came to put this team together. So in effect, we've got now 31 officers who form the community safety team across the region. Yes.
Thank you, Jim. We'll move on to Councillor Ferguson, yes.
Right, thanks, Chair. I don't know if it's James will answer this, but 5.7 of the original report, using the council call centre number, having recently tried to phone in late as last week, or early this week, sorry, and waiting 15 minutes for a reply. I'm worried that members of the public who've got legitimate grievances will have to wait too long, and asked if you've considered having a separate number for this team, for people to phone into, which would actually flash up a red light or something in the call centre. Given if this is about antisocial behaviour, for example, by the time somebody gets there, everything's long done and dusted, and those who've been creating the ASBO are miles away, and that would just be a waste of the enforcement officer's time. So I'm asking if there's been consideration given to a dedicated number for this team as opposed to the main switchboard.
I'll answer that, if I may, Chair. I will certainly pass your comment about accessibility on to one of my fellow directors who's responsible for that. We are complying with a previous council decision to concentrate all our numbers into one. I can't remember how many different numbers we've had up to this point, but it is simpler for the public to have a single point of access to the council, though it's something that we will monitor over the course of the next year to see whether it becomes appropriate again.
Actually, to ask the director as well on that very point, in looking at a review of this new system. I note that it won't be in operation until the 1st of April. When would we be looking at bringing a review or a report back to this committee?
If I could remind members, I did say it is working. It's not technically going to be active until the 1st. There are people in post and being trained for the full range of duties. So we're not doing the service. Normal reporting would be that we would report as part of the routine performance reporting system. I do know that a report on performance measures in particular will be going back to policy and resources in March, April time next year.
Thank you. Now to bring in Councillor Dryburgh.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, I'm just looking at efficiencies, Bill, and the whole setup of the council. I mean, at the moment, for instance, we have DGFirst picking up money from different customer service centres and things like that around the area, and that thing is up for review. That project is up for review. That contract. And I'm just wondering if there's a potential here to have more community safety officers out on the beat if we can have that contract. Now, I know there are issues with things like vehicles and insurance and that type of thing, but if we had, and you also got to remember that there's going to be less money spent in customer service centres because you've got PayPoint and that coming along and people being able to pay their bills, council tax, whatever it is in different shops. That contract, I believe, is coming up for review very, very shortly. And I'm just wondering if there's a potential here to have our community safety officers lift the money from the customer service centres, taking the cost of that particular project and maybe even improving the numbers on the ground officers.
I'd be quite reluctant to go firm on that until I'd had a chance to think about it. It's an interesting idea and one which I can discuss with my colleagues, and I certainly will.
Councillor Peacock.
Thank you, Chair. It's in relation to the customer satisfaction assurance evaluations on page 61. I'm surprised, I must say, but pleased at the same time to see that the evaluations on the answers in the excellent side are so high a percentage. But I am quite surprised at that, I must admit. But my comment really was, with the antisocial behaviour problems that we have within the area, or especially in my area, a lot of them are involved with the DGHP tenants. And I appreciate that DGHP have their own antisocial group working along that as well. How there do we, as our office, integrate with that team when working on issues like that? Because I have seen it where a DGHP tenant has been the cause of the antisocial behaviour, but I have seen our officers at the premises as well trying to sort issues out. So where is the sort of linkage between the two teams there?
Yeah, the DGHP antisocial behaviour team and the council community safety services it now is, we've got a working protocol that we have in place. In fact, I just had a meeting this week to review it because of the changes to the team, moving away from being called an antisocial behaviour team to a community safety team. And the partnership's actually very strong. The way it works in practice is if the complainer and the perpetrator, if you like, are both DGHP tenants, then the DGHP antisocial behaviour team have got primacy on that and we'll run with it. But because of the training that our team are doing with having noise equipment, we're doing mediation training in February, and it's about, our strategy is about early intervention. It's about trying to resolve things as quickly and long term as we can, and that's very much the plan. So that the meeting that I had this week with DGHP's antisocial behaviour team was about strengthening the partnership to make sure that we are working closer together, and we're planning to resolve things a lot better.
Right, fine. We'll now move in. Councillor Martin, sorry.
It's just on that, what Councillor Peacock was just saying about he's surprised about the excellent that. I've used the council anti-social behaviour team quite often, and that I would pretty much agree with what I'm getting there. DGHB may be a bit different, their anti-social behaviour team, but the council anti-social behaviour team certainly get good reports anytime I've referred anybody to them.
Very much for that. I will now pick up on Councillor Hislop.
Chair, it's under 4.2. It says that the Commission sets the statutory and key performance targets for the Community Safety Service. What are those targets? 'Cause my understanding they were to be arranged or to be confirmed was that surely we must have some reference back to previous years from other services that we could at least put something in there.
Leader, if I may attempt to answer that, and Jim will leap in, I'm sure, if I go off the line. One of the issues for us is that this is a brand new service. We have been doing some bits of it at some times over the course of years. I think it's fair to say that records in the past have not been as good as they could have been. So one of the issues that we have is really difficult without some baseline data to set a target when we have nothing or insufficient and inadequate data in the past. We're currently looking at, with our commissioning colleagues, how we might get something that will allow early performance to be managed. And Jim has had some ideas on that, but the decisions are yet to be taken. That's why there'll be a report to Policy and Resources.
Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, just a practical question, Bill. If we get a community safety officer, for example, going to a house up in Lochside about noise, am I right, reading from this, he just gathers the evidence of it and then has to get a community safety enforcement officer then and serve notice, is that right?
Yeah, the two roles are distinct, and you've got an enforcement officer and a community safety officer. They work together. The legislation, the Anti-Social Behaviour Scotland Act 2004 is Part 5, when you're talking about the noise enforcement and such. You've got to give a statutory warning. Now, in the past, when the noise team operated, I think in the 5 years they operated, they issued one fixed penalty notice in the region, because whenever they issued the statutory warning notice, the noise was turned down and people complied with it. It's maybe not the best piece of legislation. The police who respond out of hours mainly to the noise issue use a different piece of legislation, the Civic Government Scotland Act. It's an older act back from 1982, but it's actually much more flexible and robust. So yeah, to answer your question, both officers will work together, but it will be the enforcement officer that will do the paperwork side of things, issuing the warning. I don't anticipate seeing a lot of fixed penalty notices issued for that offence.
Councillor Driver.
Thanks for letting me back in, Chair. I forgot something to mention to Bill before. I've got here on my job, Scotland thing for Community Safety Officer for East Renfrew Council. And in it, it talks about security for council premises will also be helped with this group of community wardens in East Renfrew. So now, I wish we had the same amount of land, or should the lack of amount of land compared to Dumfries and Galloway for East Renfrewshire. But I'm just wondering if that was part of their role as well, to ensure the safety of council buildings as well. You know, because we've got quite a few buildings across Dumfries and Galloway, and I'm not sure whether they're secure or not.
It's not formally part of the role. It wasn't one of those things that council decided to give community safety. Again, I have to say the security of council buildings and property has not been a major issue for us, which is probably why nobody had that gee whiz idea. I'd also say that given that there are upwards of 1 million words in the English language, the number of times we reuse phrases like community safety and mean totally different things is amazing.
I'll bring in Jim.
Director, I can add to that. When I done the review into the services back in 2009, I actually visited East Renfrewshire. Now, they're obviously a much smaller local authority, much more geographically, but their community safety team, they run the alarm centre as well. So they've got their CCTV and alarm centre, and that's where they work out of. So because of that, they'll monitor if an alarm goes off in the council premises, they respond or they'll send the police. So there is a difference in how we operate.
Thank you, members. We'll go to the recommendations. I must say I'm actually very pleased to see this coming forward, and I really want to keep a very tight watch on it because it's extremely important to our communities. Anyway, members are asked to note the progress of the Phase 1 Community Safety Services Integration Project as outlined in Section 5 of this report. Are we in agreement? Thank you very much. Now, as we said at the beginning of the meeting, there are two other items that we would like to discuss, if that's okay and acceptable with the members. And the first one is to go through the health and safety arrangements within DGFirst. I'll hand over to the Director.
There'll be a slight pause while we get the technology back on side, and then Mr. Dempster, who has functional responsibility for health and safety within the department, will take us through his presentation.
Ronnie, sorry, can we get the volume pumped up a wee bit, or that'd be great.
My colleague says I'm now over 50, so I need to sit down, so thanks very much. The document there that we circulated, as I say, is the statement of intent. These are, as I say, they're in every depot, every office, every employee is aware of this, and it clearly states and gives direction to the responsibilities over the health and safety within our department. It emphasises the employee's responsibility and recognises the need for risk assessments and safe methods of working, and aims to provide and ensure that we are all aware of health and safety compliance within DGFirst. Getting our health and safety right. Our council's new policy is currently in draft format and will be introduced in January 2013, following the endorsement by the Audit and Risk Committee and CMT. This is making sure that we are setting our council out on the correct path with regards to the health and safety. It has a clear mission statement for our council to have a positive health and safety culture that is within everyone's mindset and is part of the day-to-day business of the council. What's out there in the council is numerous things. We have access to CASM with all the corporate health and safety team's information, health and safety policies, procedures and practices. We have the corporate health and safety action plan, and we have the health and safety audits that go throughout the council to ensure there is a level of compliance with the service requirements and ensuring that we are following a good health and safety practice. One of the things I think to bring to, we always, when we're discussing at health and safety team meetings, etc., is the human element. The majority of incidents and accidents come from us humans. No one can think about safety all the time. That goes without saying. No one plans to injure themselves. The average person can process 7 plus or minus 2 pieces of information at any time. The famous alpha sleep, which is another way of saying daydreaming, is when a lot of these accidents occur, and most of the normal human will fall into 10 minutes of this every hour. It's very important to form good habits, be aware of where we work and what we do, particularly within DGFirst and the services we provide, and avoid the theory of it's okay, I know it's there. That just results in other issues coming along. So, health and safety can be a tad dry, so I thought I'd put it into 4 simple steps for you. Identify the hazard. What is the hazard? Something that's going to do you harm. In DGFirst, we do it. This can be anything from a school kitchen down to a road site, a building site, any of these places of work where we deliver services for the council. You have to visualise the outcome. What happens if I do something? Well, or when it all goes wrong. We have to evaluate the risks. What accident could result if we did something wrong? And ultimately, apply control measures to reduce the risks. The main point I want to emphasise here is that to yourselves and to the staff and the workforce that sensible risk management is about taking a reasonable and measured approach to the risks that we have to work with. The reality is that there are many crocodiles to be found out on site just waiting to bite us within Dumfries and Galloway. And I apologise to my colleague to my right here that I put Big Boys Toys stuff up there, but I couldn't find anything with meat slicers and things like that I could put up. So.
Identify the risk. Use many more, Ronnie.
Thank you, Kate. For a number of years, our accident rates within DGFirst have been reducing. This is very true, but we still have blips. And these blips can be the ones that really come back and bite into the service. And they usually are the OMG moments, as I cite the example of the incident that happened some 2 or so years back now on the C2, which resulted in a court action against Dumfries and Galloway Council. We believe we have a well-established safety management system embedded within our service. We have a DGFirst health and safety policy, we have operational manuals, we have risk assessments, method statements, safe methods of working. We engage with our workforce via toolbox talks, we give briefings, we monitor our processes and our work practices. We have linkages with health and safety working groups, links to the corporate health and safety team, and the corporate coordinators groups. And we learn from best practice, such as working with ABSI, working with other like-minded organisations, such as Tayside Contracts. And we learn. We're not scared of the HSE. If the HSE are here, we'll speak with them. They're not the big demons. Yes, they've got teeth, but they're there. They can help us. And we have relied on their advice at times to help us through situations. Also, if Janet hopefully has circulated out our current our figures for this period, and you can see that on the red line year to date, overall our accident performance is definitely in in the improvement stage. And I think this is clear from the methodology and the way people are now operating within DGFirst, that they are more aware, more conscious of their need to be safe and to be safe for others, and have embedded the wishes that health and safety is a fundamental part of how we deliver our services, whether that be from home care right through to the construction projects that we have. But as I say, we still get the reportables, we still get the REDORs that are reported, and as you can see, we've had one of the gentleman who had a slip and fall while loading a trailer. Performance monitoring. The slide previously gives information that it's useful to manage, but we have to look at targets, we have to look at positive reactive monitoring and active monitoring. And we're in the process just now of developing a series of internal performance indicators that will allow us to prove and to show that the embedment of a positive health and safety culture is within the service. These accents are recorded on the Council's iTrent system, so we have the statistical information. Patterns can then be interrogated and reviewed to identify trends or to find out if there's a particular problem within a service. And these help us to prioritise areas of performance within DGFirst, and particularly targeting us towards specific training or the needs for training. Our Director reports to the Chief Executive on a monthly basis as to our health and safety performance, so it is recognised as a key element of our business. And the data feeds into the health and safety unit so that they can then report that through to the appropriate service committees. Ambition. DGFirst has an ambition, and health and safety doesn't just fit into a neat little box. It affects everyone within our council, and decisions made by these council halls can have a direct or indirect impact on how well health and safety is managed. Decisions made cannot compromise the health and safety of council staff and others that may be affected by those decisions. So the ambition is to create a business which operates without any serious accidents at all. In fact, we need to go further. We have to create a business in which there is no realistic likelihood of a serious accident across all the services we provide for this council. Nobody should go home at the end of the day or night from working within DGFirst in a worse state than in which they arrived in the morning. So there you go, a quick cant through DGFirst. Happy to take any questions that members may have.
I'd just like to add one point, which I'm sure members will have realised. This is also a key aspect in reducing our absence figures.
Councillor Thompson.
Just referring to the charts that you've actually handed out, and the top 5 year to date accidents, injuries by type, and it's the bottom sector where you're talking about abuse, verbal. What's actually meant by that?
Quite simply, if a member of staff, whether that be a home carer, whether that be a member of the road staff, building services staff, are verbally abused or physically abused as part of their day job. So if they were out on the street lifting a bin and they are abused, there is verbal abuse. It's that type of. So it's not the opposite way. Someone giving abuse out. It's abuse to our staff.
Thanks for that.
Councillor Driver.
Thanks, Chair. I mean, it's on the same point, actually. I mean, when one of the biggest problems that you'll have, and one of the biggest hazards that you'll actually have in DGFirst is actually dealing with the public. And obviously there's risk assessments to deal with that particular type of thing. However, when staff are either verbally abused or physically abused, do we actually take legal action against those individuals? Because I think you actually see, for instance, in hospitals that, you know, staff will not tolerate being either verbally or physically abused. It also says in hospitals, of course, thieves operate in this area, which kind of concerns me.
I think we will always pursue physical abuse. There are occasions where the guy reports it or girl reports it and says, "Oh, it wasn't, the guy was pissed off with me." It's one of those things. But where it is serious, it is taken seriously and pursued.
Okay, we have no further questions on that particular item. We can note and record that we've taken. Thank you. We will now move on to the urgent report, which has been circulated through all the members. I hope that you've had time to read it. Is it sufficient time, or do you require any further? You're quite agreeable. In that case, we'll take any questions. And Councillor Peacock.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of small points. The increase in the figures over the 3-year leasing, I presume that's an allowance for an agreed inflation cost on that. And the second point is, are we sure that we need to actually go into a 3-year agreement? I mean, would it, you know, could it possibly be a 2 and then the chance to take on a third if necessary, or do we have to take the full 3-year agreement now?
It is actually a 2-year with the option to extend.
Councillor Wyburn.
Thank you, Chair. Just a bit of clarification. It's 2014 that the receptacles, that wasn't me. I'm not shutting down. Is it 2014 that the receptacles come into use and we're entering into a contract in December this year? It seems like £58,000 to store receptacles for what, 14 months or something before we actually start using them.
I can answer that. It is a little bit complicated, but the funding for the new containers is time limited. It's available in this financial year. So the containers have actually been purchased and they're being delivered. When I say that the money has to be spent in this financial year, it has actually to be spent in the Scottish Government's financial year, which theoretically goes from the 1st of April, but after an audit report several years ago, Scottish Government accounts are shut down in February so that all the processing is done before the 31st of March. So we have to spend the money on the containers quickly, which is why we need the building now to house them.
Councillor Martin.
Just a quick one. The £1.45, £1.45, £1.55, are these rates pretty favourable compared to anything else?
Never having had to lease a hangar in my life, I am advised by the people who know what they're talking about in strategic property services that this is a good rate, yes.
Okay, members, we have no further questions. We will move to recommendations. Members are asked to agree to DGFirst entering into a leasing agreement on behalf of Planning, Housing and Environment Services with Brown Brothers Manufacturing Limited for up to 4,000 square metre of storage capacity for a period of up to 3 years at the cost of £1.45 per square foot for year 1. That's the equivalent of 58,000, or £1.55 square foot for year 2, that's up to 62,000, and £1.65 per square foot for year 3, if required, up to 66,000. Are we in agreement? Well, thank you very much, and thank you very much for your attendance today.